That's right, Shep. The White House today declined to discuss the upcoming vacancy, but said President Biden stands by that campaign pledge to nominate a black woman to a lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court and pointed to the diversity of judicial nominees the president has already installed on the federal bench.
All right, guys, today we need to talk about the topic of DEI and the current presidential election. Greetings, everybody. This is Carlton Flowers, host of the Go Political channel, and I'm so glad to have you here. So we're going to check out a news story from, I believe it is CNN. What was the news station? CNBC. I'm sorry. Where we are going to witness a discussion that was going on that is on the topic of DEI, and I'm going to make a few points that might allow you to think about what is happening today, where DEI is getting a black eye and has turned into an insult. So let's go back 2 years. In the height of the Biden administration, when he was appointing judges to federal benches and also to the Supreme Court. And then we'll talk about it a little bit. Here we go.
That's right, Shep. The White House today declined to discuss the upcoming vacancy, but said President Biden stands by that campaign pledge to nominate a black woman to a lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court and pointed to the diversity of judicial nominees the president has already installed on the federal bench.
Does the president believe that the current makeup of the court accurately reflects America's demographics?
He has nominated a historic number of judges who are people of color, a historic, I don't know if it's a historic number of women, but a majority of the judges he has nominated are women. That speaks to his desire and his interest in having courts around the country that look like America.
That look like America. So that was the White House press secretary speaking about basically DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is a policy that was being enforced, enacted, promoted by the Biden administration because President Joe Biden, as the press secretary stated, wanted the courts to reflect what the makeup of the population of the United States actually looks like. In other words, we need diversity in the courts. Therefore, they had a DEI director. They actively sought out black female judges to try to get more judges on the bench that reflect the current population because of a lack of participation of black judges, of female judges representing America. Now, the reasons for doing this were pretty fair. For many, many years, many decades, we had no chances of having black judges, let alone female judges, sit on the bench in federal courts and the Supreme Court. So in order to make things more equitable and to make up for lost time, since we had so many decades where it was without question, you would not nominate a female for a court. You would not nominate blacks for a position on the Supreme Court or on federal benches. You would not have proper representation of the Hispanic community or other minority populations. So DEI was brought forth to make things more equitable. And this was a positive thing that he was lauded for giving us judges that reflect and more represent the racial makeup of the United States. Now let's continue on.
And that represent the experiences of America.
President Biden has nominated 62 women to the federal judiciary, including 19 black women. Possible replacements for Justice Breyer, according to NBC News, include Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, whom the president interviewed personally for her position on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, seen by some as a farm league for the High Court, and California Supreme Court Justice Leondra Kruger. South Carolina Democrat and key Biden ally Jim Clyburn has backed Judge Michelle Childs from his home state to fill the vacancy.
Now, so we see 3 black women who are being pushed to the front to be hired as judges in federal courts and also for the Supreme Court. So this was considered a win for black people in the United States, that finally we would have representation on these courts. That was the purpose of DEI. But now fast forward to today. Well, actually, let's just take it back to 4 years ago when President Biden, then Vice President Biden, was running for the top office of the United States as the executive leader, okay? And part of his platform, he said he was going to continue to push DEI. He stated, I believe, that he was going to consider a black female running mate in the essence, the true nature of DEI, in order to better reflect the population for the leadership of the United States. Now we fast forward to today, and we see a bunch of Republicans that are making statements, specifically Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, who has said that Kamala Harris was a DEI appointment. And I tell you what, Kamala Harris and the Democrats have taken great offense to this, stating that this is a racist statement, and it's almost like using the N-word. So all of the sudden, DEI is a negative thing. It's a black mark. It's an insult. 2 years ago, DEI was a positive thing. And I don't say that sarcastically, because I worked on a committee for the state agency I worked for 22 years of my 30-year state career, where I actually worked on diversity initiatives. Now, back in the day, it wasn't called DEI. And when I worked for one specific agency that was lacking African-American representation among engineers, the reason why we went out to recruit and encourage junior high and high school kids to major in engineering who were African-American was because there weren't enough engineers out there graduating every year so that this particular state agency could actually hire enough people to fill vacancies. So the chief engineer actually gave me the charge to go out and try to solve this situation by educating young black teenage students to consider careers in engineering. And specifically our state agency that I worked for, this particular one for 7 years, so that by the time that they would get out of school, they would have a strong connection to this department, and we would be able to hire more engineers because there weren't enough traditional white male and female engineers to pick from. The consultants were paying a lot more money, and a lot of these people were not picking to work for the state because they wanted to go for the big bucks. So the diversity initiative did two things. Number one, it solved the problem of the low numbers of graduates in engineering, where state agencies like Missouri, which is one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the United States for salary for engineers, so that this state agency could actually hire and fulfill the positions that were vacant. Number two, it was the right thing to do because there was a disparity in the percentage of engineers in the total population reflected in the black population. So it was the right thing to do. Now, 20, 30 years on down the road and DEI comes into play, they changed it up a little bit. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, which was quite a bit different from the original diversity initiatives that I participated in and promoted. But now that we actually have people placed in these positions, we want to turn around and deny that it ever happened, and we call it an insult. So how are we going to have our cake and eat it too? We can't start initiatives to put more people into positions from underrepresented ethnic groups, only to turn around and say that those initiatives never existed. And if you say that it was an initiative that helped these people to get into those positions, it's an insult. Now, what are your thoughts? Is it an insult for someone to say that Kamala Harris, who originally was very much against Joe Biden and even accused him of being a tad bit racist, who finally got her nomination because Joe Biden set out to find an African American running mate? Now, I don't really know whether or not she's African American. She's an American that has a diverse background, Indian, Jamaican, Irish, but whatever the case, he wanted someone of color. Now that he has done that, and this person has served for 4 years and is running for President of the United States, is it an insult to acknowledge the fact that she was placed into this position above other people who may have been more qualified because of the color of her skin? Is the statement that you were a DEI hire an insult when we can go back to stories like this that you just watched on the news 2 years ago, that these initiatives were there and they did this with purpose and reason? Post in the comments. I would sure like to know, because I'm a little bit confused as to how DEI is now a bad word and why Kamala Harris would take offense. She should be proud of the fact that she is the result of a DEI initiative. She should be happy that she was pushed to the front of the Democratic ticket because the Democrats and Joe Biden were thinking, hey, we need more representation by minority populations. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but in the meantime, I would love it if you would like, comment, and subscribe to the Go Political channel. And if you would like to help me to defray the expensive cost of producing the channel, you may do so with the giving of a super thanks. And I thank you in advance. Well, that's all I've got for this one. We'll just keep it short and sweet, and we'll pick it up in the comments section. Well, until the next time, this is Carlton, and I am out.